Welcome to Inner Alchemy with me, George Stubbe, trauma, music, and plant medicine. This is the podcast for people who achieved a lot and still feel that something is missing. If you are caught between anxiety, perfectionism, emotional shutdown, and if you are ready to find a quiet mind, flow, and a sense of who you are is truly enough, then those conversations are for you. Through honest conversations with people who have done the deep inner work, we explore what it truly takes to move from superficial success to deep meaning. I'm George Stubbe, a psychologist and certified music therapist specializing in nervous system regulation. I love to utilize music, breathwork, plant medicine, and approaches that work through the body to create experiences that really shift the nervous system and not just the mind, because the true change is happening in the body. Let's dive in.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here today with JP, and he is a compassionate inquiry practitioner and trauma-informed therapist working in the Netherlands. And through his practice, EODV, he supports people in exploring the deeper patterns behind emotional pain, coping strategies, and relational dynamics, combining compassion with practical steps for everyday life. His work is shaped not only by professional training in compassionate inquiry, ACT, internal family systems, and polyvagal-informed approaches, but also by his own long-term path of self-inquiry, therapy, martial arts, and creative work. And alongside his private practice, he works in homeless care and runs a Kenpo school, experiences that keep his work grounded in the realities of human resilience and complexity. Yeah, welcome to this podcast today, JP.
Thank you very much, George. Thank you for having me.
And yeah, I'm curious to hear what EODV stands for and how you found that name for your practice.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't get it a lot. So EODV, it's Dutch for first war, then progress. And it really means that when I started the company, the years before that, there was a war going on inside my head. And I really felt the need to first address that, to see what the war was about, and to be willing to be with it and to work my way through it and come out of the other end. And so I'm assuming that people that knock on my door, they might have something like a war going on in their head.
Yeah.
So this is why I choose that name.
Yeah, super profound meaning, of course. And
yeah.
Well, the first thought that I have when you talk about this internal war is like this perspective of different parts being in like a conflict with each other.
Absolutely. There's a constant debate going on. There's constant criticism, constant shame, guilt, unclear vision, having no control, feeling powerless, which is not a feeling, it's a perception, of course, but powerlessness. And so, yeah, that was all happening. And I couldn't make means end, and it was a difficult time in my life. I had just, that were years before that, I sold my business. I was in a different type of business.
Yeah.
And I sold that business because I didn't want to push paper anymore, and I wanted to go back to working with people. And apparently I had a lot of stuff that I still needed to check in with myself. And so sold the business, and a lot of consequences came from that, and got me into a predicament. And fortunate enough, I lived in the forest, and there was not a whole lot of collective energy around me. So I was able to focus entirely on making art and painting and drawing to get my mind straight. And then at that time, I I got introduced to Gabor Mate, and Compassionate Inquiry not long thereafter. And after I had watched the video of Course in Miracles, which is the instigator of all this, and I watched a Vancouver session of himself and Diedrich Wolzak, who was tied to the Course in Miracles. And so I noticed the both of them on stage, and they were making a lot of sense to me. And that's where I started figuring that this Gabor Mate guy, who I first thought was this weird guy sitting like a I don't know. It was funny to see him in a way that, was very uncommon for me, and it drew my attention in the way that he spoke. And so I found a few more things online. There's a lot more now to be found about him, but then at the time, 2018, there wasn't so much on him. And I found that to be very helpful. And that's how my journey into compassionate inquiry started back in 2019. Yeah. So that's basically the story, and then evolving into setting up the business and consulting, and coming from a path of martial arts and trauma work.
So Kenpo is a specific type of martial art, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's I'm part of the Universal Kempo Federation, which is a little bit different than the traditional American Kempo, which was hold on one second. Where are you? I lost you there for a phone call. Some phone call. I will turn off my phone entirely. There. Shouldn't be bumping now. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So Kenpo, American Kenpo, was started by a man named Ed Parker, and back in the 50s, and he started American Kenpo, which has made a lot of people famous, like Bruce Lee, and even Elvis Presley was 7th degree or 8th degree black belt. It's quite interesting, and a lot of people don't know it. And he was working with Ed Parker, Elvis Presley, EP. So they were, teaming up, and Ed Parker became the bouncer, or the head of security for Elvis Presley. And so that's how American Kenpo got a little bit of wind and air. And I received my black belt in the Netherlands here back in 2007, but I had already engaged with it for a much longer time. And then around that time, I also converted to a more combat-driven Kempo, which is Universal Kempo Federation, by my instructor's name is Mike Pick, Grandmaster Mike Pick, and he lives in the US, and I've been training with him ever since. And it's a very interesting dynamic, the whole martial arts part, and the way that I look at combat and life and death situations, and how everything is starting with you, and how you protect your own peace. And that seemed to have been the red line throughout my healing process into what I became now. And still, I train every week, and I teach, and some of the nomenclature, some of the things that are being mentioned is very similar to what we do in trauma work as well.
Can you give a few examples of that? Because I'm really curious to know how those two worlds inform each other for yourself.
It's let me see if there's something. Yeah, like for instance, that when you don't have a clear vision about something that you want to do in life, the chances are that you're going to be put on a spot at one point or another, and you'd be finding words, or you're trying to figure out what to do. You haven't really thought about what you're going to do in a certain situation if it became an ultimate situation.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be doubting. And I want it to be in a situation where I am already going through, or I have already gone through a process, and I am never going to doubt in a situation where push come to shove.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm more attacking an attack than I would defend an attack against an attack. So attacking the attack, basically. So in trauma work, in what I'm experiencing at least, is that a lot of times I'm struggling with the struggle. I don't want to be struggling with the struggle. I want to go down to the basis of it. So when a fist is coming at me, it's a shoulder-driven attack. So I'm not going to defend against the fist. I'm going to go to the shoulder so that the fist never reaches me.
Mm.
So that has actually ignited a thought processing inside me where I'm going to be going to what causes something rather than what derives of it, you know? And so that's just one example. And so and that's just one example. I mean, there's tons more. And like if you want to physically or mentally change something, you first need to connect to it. So there's contact penetration. And then for it to take effect, you need to have impact manipulation, you know? So, and it, you know, it goes too far and too deep into the nitty gritty of what I'm doing in this session. I'm, you know, I can talk in length about this, but it's probably not going to be as exciting for other people to listen to, but.
But I find it's really, actually really exciting. And I think this, for example, let's say the metaphor of like going down to the shoulder and having and going to the origin of things is a really powerful metaphor.
Yeah,
indeed, for trauma work, right?
Absolutely.
I've spent, you know, I've been interested and engaged with like personal development since I'm like 17, 18-ish. And yeah, so through that, I've done many years of personal development, of therapy, of spiritual explorations. And only when I arrived at the point where I started to work with a trauma-informed therapist, things really started to change or really started to move. And yeah, you can defend yourself against a fist and it does something, but it's nothing compared to like really going to the root causes of things and going through the body and the nervous system.
Yeah. And so my instructor, Mike Pick, he's got this famous phrase in the Kempo world. It says, in order to move the mass, you must engage the mass. In order to engage the mass, you must distribute the mass according to your natural anatomical alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do anything, you need to first connect to it.
Yeah.
And so, and then when you want to distribute that, you need to go even further. So you're going to the root cause, just like you said. And I think that's really powerful. And every step that I take, I'm conscious of how I take that step.
Yeah.
And I'm also conscious of what is in front of me. And so when there's mass and resistance, and this could be a body, this could be a person, but it could also be a thought.
Yeah.
Right. So I could be hooked with a thought about myself, like I'm a bad father. You know, I could be hooked with that thought.
Yeah.
Now, if I run away from it, I'm avoiding the experience. So I taught myself not to avoid the experience, but to accept the experience. Like, I'm accepting this mass, but I'm now going to attack that mass, and I'm going to go to the root cause of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, there's a lot that's similar to the martial arts world and the trauma world and the way that we look at it. And of course, there's years and years of science behind it.
Absolutely.
In trauma work, you know, going back as far as Buddha and you know, Sufism and all that stuff. And so, and then looking at looking at the martial arts world, you can go back centuries back in time, and we've always been successful in attacking what is coming at us, and even from a reptilian brain standpoint, we were able to do that. So it's about 500 million years old.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wondered, if we assume that somebody who listens never has done trauma therapy or the work that we're talking about, maybe it would be worthwhile to just give an example of that. And in that way, I think about what Gabor or NCI, they call the GPS of trauma, right? Where there are certain questions that are really helpful to go to the root, to one of the root causes or the root moments. And maybe we can bring up an example for that.
Well, I mean, there's always this mix of different things that are showing up for us, and it's not in a particular order, but usually there's a thought,
yes,
and then there's a bodily expression of that thought, and then there might be
a bodily expression would be, for example, tightness or
clenching of the jaw, or teary eyes, or shoulders caught up in it like a twist or something like that.
Fluffy stomach or something like
anything could be happening. Burping, anything that you can think of, a bodily expression, and usually it's uncomfortable. And then there's an emotion sometimes attached to it. Sometimes we don't know it. Sometimes we are not able to sense what's going on in our body. So this is why I never ask people about what they feel. I'm asking them what they notice, or what is the experience currently, So when that occurs, then there's a couple of things that we can do. We can avoid it, by going to what kind of strategy you had in mind, or what worked for you in the past. So that strategy is going to be used again.
Could be anything, right? Could be like
could be
doing
anything.
More work, doing drugs, watching TV, anything to like
right. Aggression, pornography,
food.
Sports, food, what have you. Cutting yourself, even to a point where you're considering suicide. So those are strategies to get rid of the experience. And so what I'm trying to do in trauma work is to invite people in a safe space where there's a lot of attunement and empathetic abiding presence to be with whatever is occurring inside someone, and to invite them to be with the experience rather than to avoid it. Because right now I'm with them, and we don't have to go to the experience. We don't have to necessarily. So I'm always asking permission to go there, right? And so that there's some agency that they experience themselves, and now they're in a safe space where there's no one going to be bombarding them, or there's no one going to attack them with questions, or make it a cognitive process all of a sudden, that they really have this open atmosphere wherein they can, experience what is currently or currently expressing in their body or in their mind. So, and then once you have that established and people are in a calmer situation, you can actually notice people are calming down. You can ask, what do you notice now? And then, people would state something like, I'm noticing that, some of the things that are happening in my body are dissipating now, or, it's totally gone, or sometimes it intensifies. And when it intensifies, there might be resistance. Now, what is the resistance telling us? Is the resistance something that we need to avoid now, or is the resistance something that we can look at as part of not going through long-term suffering, but we can use the resistance to see what is underneath it? And 9 out of 10 times there's pain underneath the resistance.
Yes.
So, but it's a gentle flow. It's like a creek where you're, both, in a rubber boat, you're just floating around, and, things have their way. And so you try to be together and go with the flow, basically. And that's how I approach my training as well in martial arts. I do the same thing. I don't want people to do it right and they can't do it wrong. It's, the worst thing that could happen is that it's different than what they expected. That's it. And so this is what I do in therapy as well. So it's never about them doing the right thing, or am I getting this right, but everything that is being shown to you as a therapist is valuable information.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and also in the client role, the same, right? Like it's all really important and useful information, even so sometimes it can be challenging information, because you might remember something that you have repressed for a long time, or that you haven't visited since a time where it was too much or too painful. But then waking up to, actually as an adult nowadays, I can actually be with it in a totally different way. That's such an empowering experience, isn't it?
Yeah. And it happens to me every other day, that I'm being drawn back into the past, and I'm definitely not in the here and now. So something is pricking me in the side and telling me, look here.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes really painful, and I want to run away from it. I want to go back to certain strategies and behavior. So there's an antecedent, and then there's the behavior, and then there's a consequence to the behavior. So the antecedent could be an internal one or an external antecedent. The behavior is something that you can see. It's either overt or it's covert, right? And then there's a consequence to that as well. Like, could be short-term consequence. And with my behavior, sometimes the consequence in the short term is that it relaxes me somewhat, or it gives me vitality. But for the long run, it's probably going to show me more pain, and it's going to be suffering, long-term suffering. And so where we are as therapists and instructors is to be with what is in the very moment, and to see if it's possible to get someone out of the self in context and into the here and now.
Yeah.
Using acceptance rather than avoiding strategies.
Exactly. Acceptance and like leaning in a safe way. And that's
leaning in. Exactly. Yeah.
When I just thought back about to the years where I have been very active in martial arts and Taekwondo as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it a few times in the last month, that one of the biggest things that I learned from that is that it's actually really fun to lean in terms of it's fun and enriching to not blow away your boundaries or your limits, but to lean into them and to stretch them a bit, and to see like, okay, I think I'm really exhausted. Like, can I go a bit more, or can I lean into it? And I think that's something that I just started to realize that it was actually really influential in my teenage years.
Yeah, so that's a really personal thing, because I also know people that have great difficulties in leaning into something. Or they have such a pleasing character that they would go over their own boundaries. And so
that's awesome.
As an instructor, it's really important to keep checking in with what is necessary in that particular instance. Yeah. And also with therapy, I think that's really important, to not overdo it, to not overstep it. Don't have an agenda. Yeah. As CI is quite big on having an agenda. It's not a good thing to have, right? Because whatever is showing up for someone, it could be bad, it could be good. it is your perception whether it's bad or good. It's not what they are saying or stating. So it's good to check with someone what they experience. So in teaching, I can, I relate to what you say about, overdoing it or just one extra step. But for someone that is trying to look at their boundaries and how to set their boundaries and to not overdo them, it's a whole different spectrum what they're going after. So it's on the surface we look at things from our own eyes, but I think it's our form of art to look at it from multiple perspectives and to see what might be going on, not from an agenda, but what might be going on, and to check in with people to see what is actually going on.
Yeah.
And when you have a hunch that, might be something else going on as to what they say, if someone says, no, I'm quite okay, but you see some micro expression that might, communicate something else, then I'm actually very curious to see what that micro expression was about.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And this is, yeah.
I remember many sessions with you where I would talk about something that's actually really difficult, and then I would smile or laugh, and then you would check in on that, and those moments have been super transformational.
Yeah. Well, thank you for acknowledging that. And so that's really important. I could definitely recommend going into micro expression studies and to see what you can pick up on that. Like
yeah. Do you have any resources that you could recommend for that? Also for people listening?
Yeah, I just keep, I did the training, I went through it, and now that you bring it up and put me on a spot, it's Paul. I will have to look it up. Could you hold a second, and I will find it.
Yeah, of course.
And this is, I had the same situation today with my client. A very, very important thing. He asked me, I couldn't find it. It was on the tip of my tongue and I couldn't find it. It's so, facial expression. Paul Ekman there.
Paul Ekman.
Yeah, Paul Ekman, EKMEN, MAN.com. Paul Ekman. It's I did it long ago, back in the 90s, I think, early 2000s. I was in the business of sales, and at the time I started as a psychiatric nurse, and then or in training to become a psychiatric nurse, and then went into sales because I wasn't able to work with a company that had different thoughts and ideas about psychiatry than I did as a young man. So I couldn't relate to what they were doing there.
Yeah.
So I already had a family and I needed to make a living. So I ended up in sales eventually, first in printing and then in sales. And then because of that, I wanted to know what a person was really saying when they were speaking to me. And that's why I went into that Paul Ekman facial expressions and bodily expression. And there was a TV series, you might remember it. It's called Lie to Me with Tim Roth.
No.
And if you can find it, it's brilliant. It's a really, really nice TV series. It's a little overdone, but I think it was based on Paul Ekman's practice. Yeah.
Well, we'll look into that. It's something that definitely resonates with me.
Yeah.
And something I wanted to ask you, JP, is both from your trauma-informed work and the martial art work. I want to ask you, what is your take on anger and aggression? Because I feel often people have a some misconceptions around that, or in a therapeutic process don't want to go there, or in the spiritual world they would like say, yeah, with anger you only damage yourself. And in my experience, that's quite different, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, so can you first tell me what the confusion is with you? What or not confusion, but what is the real question, the deeper question there about anger?
Well, for me, what I realized, what I've experienced in trauma work is that I actually had a lot of repressed anger, and that was really important to allow anger to come up.
Yeah.
And that at first, that was also a gateway into sadness, because behind anger was a lot of sadness. And then also, anger was really important to stop internalizing things and innocently continuing what children have to do, which is saying, it's about me, it's not about my parents, it's about me, because they have to save this attachment relationship with their parents. But as an adult, of course, that's very detrimental. And you when you talked about like the internal war, that's exactly what's happening there, right? We internalize things and we say, I'm stupid, I'm not good, I'm not enough. But the anger actually helped me to put those things where they belong, which was like, this teacher really shouldn't have said that to me, or this adult who abused me. Like, this was not about me, this was about you.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are a few examples of me, how anger is actually a really important ally in a healing process. And
Okay.
that's something I'm curious about.
Well, when you look at children when they're about 2 or 3, they start to experiment with the word no.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a young father, it's my oldest son's birthday today. So when he was, and he's 31 now, so when he was about 2, 3 years old, and he said no to me, I was laughing like, this 2, 3-year-old is telling me no. The hell do you think? Who the hell do you think you are? So I had this idea or belief about myself that I needed to fix that. And I needed to put him by himself saying no in a room, or in the hallway, or, on the stairs. And, you just calm down. But really what needed to be done there is, my child is at that point is figuring out ways to set boundaries, which is a really important thing, or an important feature to be engaging in, as a child, and to actually outperform yourself in, and throwing a tantrum, if you don't get it your way. Yeah. Like Garber said in one of his sessions, or I think he's referring to something one of his friends said is, when your child can't have a cookie for dinner, they will throw a tantrum. You'll still not give them the cookie, but you can also say, I see that you don't want the cookie. I think you're really disappointed, and I can see that. I can see the frustration. I will give you a hug because I do feel for you, but you're still not going to get the cookie. Mm-hmm. So now the child gets to experience that it's okay to be angry, to set your boundaries, and to really, want something, but that there's someone else who is not aggressive and not being, pushing you back in a corner, and allowing you to be mad. So when you haven't been able to express yourself in that way when you were younger, and your parents wouldn't have no from you, chances are that you have adapted from that and you kept the anger in. And then when you're a little older, let's say your puberty, or even in your adult life, something happens and you might be very, very triggered and mad. And so then you will throw a tantrum. But now there's an adult throwing a tantrum, but there's never an adult throwing a tantrum. It's the little child in you that's throwing a tantrum. So I believe that aggression and anger, they might have served you, but could it have also been a strategy getting out of certain emotions, feelings, sensations, or thoughts about yourself? And would it have also been possible to notice anger showing up for you, to address that with an emotional, caring person in front of you, to say, I'm noticing anger coming up because I'm not getting my way, I'm frustrated. And that person then would say, okay, so listen, let's sit down with that and see what is going on here, and what would you like? And okay, so right now that's not going to be feasible. It's not going to happen. But I do see your anger. I do see your frustration, and I want to thank you for showing that experience to me. So if that was the case when you were growing up, and even now when you're going through your trauma therapy, or you're going through your trauma process, and trying to have a different relationship to it, that might come across, and it might have served you, the anger. But I do think that anger is, when it's healthy anger, when someone's stepping on your toes and they keep doing that, you might want to push them off. Like, why would you be on my feet all the time? There's a ton of space, but now you're just annoying. So be gone. That's healthy anger. But when you're angry because you can't have it your way, something hasn't been addressed when you were young. And so there might be some work to be had or to be done, I think.
Agree.
Yeah.
And when we bring it to like martial arts, it's what I see is like healthy anger is really important for self-defense. If somebody is getting too close and you need anger to defend your boundaries.
Well, you'll pick up on it's different because now you're and it depends also on how you're wired. When you're a young person, or you're a small person, and I was attacked when I was younger, as an 18-year-old or 17-year-old, by a gang of people. I knew that I was unable to fight with them. I could hit them a couple of times, and I did, or I could flee, but it was no possible way to go out. I got ambushed into like a cul-de-sac, so I wasn't able to go anywhere. And then my body took over, and I got beaten and kicked, and I didn't feel a thing, nothing. The only thing that I could then speak is say, come back if you dare, to the same group, just, going away after having beaten me into pulp and leaving me in the street almost for dead. The only thing I could say, because I wasn't feeling anything, I'm like, wow, is this what they talk about? Is this all? I came to, and then I said something like that. And then they came back and they gave me some more. And then I said the same thing because I was just laughing. And I don't know, it might have been nerves and all that stuff. But then they picked me up and put me in a stool over in a bar. They cleaned me up and gave me beer because they wanted me to become part of their gang somehow, which I refused, of course. I don't want to be in any group. But they wanted me to be in that group. They thought of it as an initiation, But I didn't feel anything. So when you are not able to fight, you're not able to flee, what does the body do? It goes into a total shutdown. It goes into a freeze. And when you're in freeze, you can't do anything. So you never know exactly what you're going to do in a situation. But what you can train is having thought about what you would do in an ultimate situation beforehand. You can do that in training. And then hopefully when you are not able to defend yourself, something will come out which will eventually help you get out of that awkward position. And so, and it might be anger, but it could also be a sympathetic nervous system that is activated, and throwing blood to the hands and to the feet so that you can run and fight. Or you're getting a shot of endorphins, and you're not able to do anything, and you won't feel a thing. You will feel it later. I know, I felt it later.
Yeah.
But then the whole thing had passed and I still lived.
Mm.
So yeah, it's really hard to say. And anger might have served you, or there might have been the perception of anger serving you. But I think anger also clogs your thought processing, and because you might have noticed that when you're sympathetic, when you're angry, when you're mad or sad or something like that, when you're activated, it's hard to think straight. It's not like you're being ventral and being very open to conversation and to dialogue and to sit there and think about your next meal or having sex or something like that. It's probably not happening when you're being pushed in the corner. So you're not able to think straight. So you might have gotten angry, but if it's anger almost to a point of a tantrum, you don't see it straight. People get like this ways, blurry vision, and it's all white, and they're white of anger, right? And so that's basically what's happening.
Yeah, it's super fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially with anger, there's so much nuance needed. And something really to be explored, because I feel when we just push it away and say, I'm not angry and I'm never angry, then it will come out in unhealthy ways.
If you have no way to express yourself, you're suppressing it. And when you suppress long enough, it'll become depression, is my understanding of it. And it's not to say that depression is the opposite of expression, although it might be. But when you suppress your anger long enough, it becomes something, like it's either going to explode or it's going to depress. So it's either going to be an impulsive or an inactivating, what is the word? Force. Yeah. So either you're going to be very impulsive and very aggressive and you're going at it, or you're dropping half dead on the couch and nothing happens. You can't help yourself anymore.
Yeah, it's dysregulated nervous system.
Dysregulated, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'm aware of the time.
Yes, me too.
And yeah, the last question. The last question, very simple, like if people want to find more about you and your work, where would you direct them to?
Well, they can go to the Compassionate Inquiry website, compassionateinquiry.com, and they will find other people besides me, of course, which is also fair to state.
Yeah.
But there will be my information on there, and they can go to EODV.nl, which is my website, and it's www.eodv.nl. NL for the Netherlands. So I work internationally through online via Zoom, and people can also visit me in the center of the Netherlands near Utrecht. It might be quite a commute if you're coming from the US or somewhere, but it's optional. And and so there's a telephone number that you can find. I don't know if you put the information, the address information and stuff on.
I can put your website and everything in the show notes, as they call it.
Yeah. And and if people have any specific needs, if it comes to trauma or suicidality, by all means, just reach out, and you're never alone with that. And
beautiful.
And then also, may I make a little commercial or a promo for the suicide attention program?
Of course,
which is, I think, is really important to just check, to see. Everyone knows someone that has dealt with suicidal ideation. And so if it's possible for you to check the Compassionate Inquiry website and to see what is written there in the suicide attention programs, it might actually be valuable to someone's life, and maybe even for your own. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, JP. That's really awesome. And thank you for being here on this podcast.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here on Inner Alchemy. If this episode resonated with you, then please share it with someone who might benefit from it. And if you want to go deeper, then you can check out my 10-day course called The Missing Piece that teaches you how the nervous system works and how you can start to regulate your own nervous system. You learn powerful tools how to quieten your mind and your nervous system, how to get in touch with your emotions, and how to feel like who you are is truly enough. And if you would like to work one-on-one with me, you can schedule a free session through my website georgestuby.com. And you can also find me on Instagram as iamgeorgestuby.com. I'm really looking forward to get in touch with you and also to welcome you in one of the next episodes. Stay present, stay embodied, and I'm sending you much love.